Voices against corruption. Let the people speak.
Hello and welcome to Primark's public feedback series on corruption called Voices Against Corruption. And we ask, how does corruption affect persons with disability?
Like it is in every other unfortunate situation, they are the worst hit. As a blind person, corruption has a lot to do in the wrong way in my life. For instance, if you don't create good roads that will make it convenient for a blind person like me to be able to move around, then that is bad. And where corruption comes in is the fact that provision may have been made for these aspects of the social needs to be taken care of, but because of people that won't want it to happen, I will suffer corruption when I cannot get a good job to do because I don't have the ability to do what others are doing.
You'll find situations where we push and advocate for provisions in the budget for persons with disabilities, and then it gets approved and money gets disbursed to certain quarters to improve the lives and welfare of persons with disabilities. And then you find some hungry persons take this money, put it in their pockets and not do the needful, and then the status quo remains. The persons with disabilities are still having the same challenges, they are still facing the same problems. You go to government agencies and they are ordinarily meant to be particular slots for persons with disabilities, but you find corrupt officials giving these slots to their family members or friends that may not even be qualified for this job. They would rather give it to persons they know than give it to the persons with disabilities they are allotted for.
The effect of corruption lead to hunger, lead to poverty. And the disability, the one that they are not able, they don't have hand or leg or no eye, they are finding it very difficult to feed or to survive. If those with 2 legs and 1 hand like myself, I'm finding it very difficult to take 1 square meal a day, then talk more or less those who are depending under our own personal help. Really, they are dying.
The system does not create enabling environment for the people with disabilities because they are not being carried along. The government feel they are not qualified to be part of some things in the country. And I see the reason why we need to fight for these people, because the only thing that can make a country to be called a country is when the people that have all it takes can fight for those people that don't have all it takes to fight for themselves.
Corruption affects persons with disabilities in so many ways. Talk about education, talk about infrastructure, talk about social protection, talking about empowerment. In the area of health, you find out that there are so many equipments that were supposed to be in our medical facilities, but you find out that some of these equipments would not be purchased either by the management or by the contractor, and thereby denying persons with disabilities to access to qualitative and accessible health care services.
Disability is, they need care. And if there is corruption, especially in the medical field, if there is corruption there, it will definitely affect them. There will be no drugs, there will be no proper care. The handicapped or those that are disabled, they need adequate attention.
A person with disability suffers a lot in discrimination simply because there is no bill to back up the rights of persons with disability.
Now, with corruption, the idea of suffering person with disability will easily escape through.
Corruption affects persons with disabilities in several ways, in the sense that we know that persons with disabilities in Nigeria hardly heard, they don't have voices, they don't have institutions that speak for them.
Corruption do affect people with disabilities because if you go to our government sectors, our offices here, you hardly find them there. If you go to top places in Nigeria, you hardly find people with disabilities there.
So many ways, because when you look at some of some of the things are actually constitute a lot of barriers to persons with disabilities within our society. When you talk about structures, I find out that some of these structures, I believe that some of them must have even been designed in a way that a person with disabilities can actually access it. For me in particular, because I'm somebody who wants to go to offices, engage people within the government and even private sector. I find it difficult at times moving around because the society has actually been designed in a way that I cannot really move around. And I know that corruption is part of it, because they are not really been creating majority. Most times, even when they made provision for some of these things, you see someone not doing what he's supposed to do.
If corruption deprives the society of basic amenities, then it will be worse off on people who have obvious disability. When corruption eats into the society and perhaps funds and resources that would have been plowed into infrastructure are not put in place, then it will rub off more on those who are challenged. For those who may have obvious challenges, like maybe most of the people pass around as blind people, some might have just simple eye problems that could be fixed with better health facilities. And if we don't have good health facilities like it is the norm in Nigeria, COVID-19 has come to further expose how ill-equipped our health facilities are. So it becomes worse off for people with such disabilities.
There are some plenty things when if we dey read news or inside television or so other things, we dey hear say government dey help us, but most of the thing when they talk, they know they enter our hand. We don't know why. We don't know other government, they don't know our location, or they don't know where we are, where they know they carry that kind thing direct to us. We don't know. So we know they receive anything from government.
Corruption is inimical to the development of any country. It's inimical to the image of any country. And as it affects persons with disabilities, it's a kind of triple tragedy, because persons with disabilities are people living with one form of disability, ailment or the other. The disability or impairment that comes to them has hampered them as a sort of restriction from the daily social life, which they come in contact with some barriers that hamper their activities, such as structural barriers. The public buildings, the hospitals, the bank, the churches, the government offices are not accessible.
In every sense of corruption affects a disabled person, because a disabled person relies only on the government, and though we all rely on God, but there is a government in every country that is responsible for taking care of every citizen who cannot fend from themselves, who cannot look after themselves, who cannot make money by themselves. But because the system is corrupt, because there is no check and balance.
The fact that the government gave us this place is their contribution towards taking care of persons with special needs. But I know there are people who are looking for opportunities like this, and due to corruption, they were not able to get it, especially in the educational sector. If you look at the educational law in Nigeria, there's a provision for special needs in the educational law in Nigeria, just the way it is in other countries. But I feel that the only reason it's not being implemented properly is because of corruption. If there was no corruption, if corruption is properly managed, the implementation is easy.
Primox's public feedback on corruption in Nigeria is produced with support from the MacArthur Foundation.